Now I'd like to turn to our third speaker. Hai Ren is a professor of East Asian Studies and Anthropology, an affiliated faculty in Gender and Women's Studies and Social, Cultural, and Critical Theory here at the University of Arizona. He's also a distinguished professor in the Department of Sculpture and Fine Arts at Sichuan Fine Arts Institution in Chongqing, a top-ranked sculpture program in China. His current research interests include socially engaged art, public history, project-oriented anthropology, urban studies, comparative media and technology, public humanities and digital humanities, popular culture, and critical theory. And yes, he's a very busy man. He's going to talk today on, his topic is Don't Chat, Impacts of WeChat's Ban on American Citizens. Professor Ren.
And Albert, thank you. Let me share my presentation. So again, thank you for the department to organize this important event. And thanks to the College of Humanities and for technical support and everything else. And I also appreciate my two colleagues who talk about the background information for this case study in some way. I think Fabio's presentation really laid out the broader issues and in very complicated ways about this US-China I hate to use conflict, but it is actually in conflict. So maybe some people use Cold War. I think more accurately, perhaps we have Cold War point two. It's more high tech. And it's certainly a different kind of Cold War. And also Brett's presentation really ground some of the issues in the American history about particularly treatment of Asian Pacific Americans, APAs. And so my case study here is actually connected to both. And so there's a lot of issues. What I'm going to do today is basically focus on the facts, focus on something has happened in recent months. And so if you look at the flyers, those are the questions I listed. I'm just going to go over them. And I have quite a bit of information, but I want to really cover the details so that to leave some room for discussion. So first of all, what is WeChat? Okay, so this is a good kind of image of WeChat. You can download from app stores and also for Android, either way. And this is the kind of app most people use around the world. And it's also available for desktop versions as well. So I want to just mention a few things. I write down here. So WeChat literally means micro message. And also many people think about this as a messaging app, but it's actually an entire platform. In China, it's called a super app. It's the app for everything. And that's also the reason why this app is so popular. There are more than 1.2 billion people use this app around the world. And also this app, when it was released in 2011 and within 10 years, now becomes the most important mobile apps in the world, basically most used. And the one thing I want to mention is that this app, WeChat, is owned by, it was first produced by this company called Tencent, based in Shenzhen, China. And Tencent is a public traded company, mostly in Hong Kong and also in other places. And its majority holders are, this one is a company based in Amsterdam, owned just about under 31%. And the company's founder and CEO, chairman, owns the second largest share. This is very updated information. Ma Huateng, or Pony Ma. And so you also know that last month, the US government tried to ban the use of WeChat. And then this executive order was banned, or was blocked temporarily by a US federal judge based in Northern California. So this is what happened with WeChat. But I want to give you a little bit of context. How do we look at WeChat? Here's the WeChat. And this is according to Tencent's annual report. So this information is very updated, most recent one. So when you look at this company, the social media aspect, Weixin or WeChat, is the most important part of the business of this company. Then another portion is online games platform, and they also have media. So for example, you see lots of those television series, movies, they're available on Netflix or Amazon Prime. Many of them are actually produced by Tencent. And they also have this financial tech called fintech, is also very important. And they also have many other kinds of technology aspects. So as you can see, as a kind of a social media company, this company is among the most successful ones in the world in some way. And so this is the background information. And this particular one has to do with WeChat. And WeChat is not, as I said, is a platform, right? So, and it's very, most people use for communications, but they also have, can pay, use so-called Weixin Pay. And also there's you can make apps within the app, and individuals, companies, organizations, they can use this. So here I want to mention 1.2 billion monthly active users. That's what MAU stands for. And they have another kind of a social media platform called QQ. It's very popular as well, and has, you can see, has 648 million monthly active users. And so some of you think about WeChat, many of you play video games in the US and other places. In terms of, in this sector, Tencent is probably the most important player companies in the world. And look here, we have some of the most, like some of you who play this, the League of Legends, which is the #1 PC games. And this was originally developed by Tencent. And many other ones, you know, they are all extremely popular. So, and also they have 300 titles in their portfolio. And so, and many, the company also invested in many US major game companies, including recently, there was this company called Epic Games based in North Carolina, had this legal battle with Apple, right? Tencent actually owns 40% of Epic Games. Tencent also invested in movies and music and all those things. So in some way, so when we talk about WeChat, we talk about it's something that is part of a larger kind of um, sector. And if you look here, so this is a very important high daily active user platforms. The most important things I think Tencent is developing, and many people actually think about this is going to have a more impact, has to do with AI, automation. And so this technology sector, so they invested in like electrical automobiles, things like that. They also have investment in Tesla, right? A giant star in America, in United States, and clouds and transportation, and many things. And of course, financial aspect, right? And this is something I already mentioned. I don't need to cover a little bit more. So the point is that, so when we talk about what is WeChat, WeChat is a larger kind of part of technological portfolio. So how WeChat is used in China and United States. I want to play this short video. It's about 3 minutes long. And so we made this video just for this presentation. Okay, So, so the point I want to make by making that video is that WeChat is literally everywhere. WeChat literally equals to everyday life. You can't live without using WeChat in China. From people who are very young, like young people who can use the who have phones, and to people who are in their 70s. So it's one of the most important apps in China, basically. So the next, I want to talk a little bit, just a little bit about globally how this will work. Like people did studies. You should look this by the Citizens Lab report based at the University of Toronto. They compare how users, how apps, WeChat are different in different countries, and how censorship and all those things work. So I thought it was very interesting. They have this term called one app, two systems. And this is exactly how things work in China. They have one system, but perhaps there are many ways of doing things. And so another thing I want to mention is this, so since people use WeChat all the time, they do actually talk about things that are controversial, like if things happen, if things related to problems in society, they do talk about this. This is about sexual harassment, happened in Beijing 2 years ago. This is about forced demolition, eviction, and particularly aimed at migrant workers and artists. And so people do talk about this within the chat groups and discuss the problems, and people do complain about all those different things. And so this particular one is related to that issue. So they criticize discrimination against migrants in Beijing, and so there's a lot of those kind of discussions. And because the time is very short, I really I just don't want to read this, but I want to show you there are lots of those kind of examples. And so this one is from this year. So some of you know that the medical doctor Li Wenling, who was a whistleblower, who was one of the first people mentioned about this virus in the end of December, and was arrested, and then he passed away by in the middle of in the hospital while saving lives of those who were affected by the virus. And so there's a lot of those kind of commemorative activities and celebrating his life and his bravery and many things. People use 25 different languages to do this. So in a way, this is a good example to show how Chinese users are very creative in terms of bypass censorship and dealing with sensitive issues. Okay, so then the last section had to do with why the US government tried to ban. So one of the things had to do with of course, it's always about the Communist Party of China. And so the CEO and the founder of the company, Pony Ma, who is actually a representative of the 13th People's Congress. And so I would assume he's also a Communist Party member. And so he's often choosing us in the US presidential election campaigns. He's often choose as the Chinese business executives has closer tie to Communist Party and somehow support U.S. Political candidates, right? And we saw those kind of ads in Arizona and things like that. But as you know, the Chinese Communist Party is actually a huge party. It has more than 91 million members. And in the summer, I think the U.S. government also talk about ban U.S. Chinese Communist Party members coming to United States for a visit and things like that. But the point I want to make is that the party is the ruling party of China. They refer themselves as Communist Party of China or CPC. And they wanted to make sure CPC is different from CCP, Chinese Communist Party. They used to use this term to refer to revolutionary party. So they do talk about the changes of the party. I guess, you know, one of the things in the context of Fabio's discussion is that, you know, most people think about China. They don't think China ever changed. You know, the Chinese state never changed. The Chinese Communist Party never changed, right? So nobody, most scholars, most media, they never pick up the term CPC. They mostly just use CCP. This is a minor issue, but it is a reflection of stereotypes about other countries. And this is, you know, like in scholarly circle, we call this Orientalism, right? And but also, if we apply the same logic to the Republican Party or the Democratic Party in the US, I think most people would not agree with that, right? You know, the party of Lincoln is not the same party of the current Republican Party, right? And that using that as an example. But so the link to the Communist Party is one of the problems they try to address here. Another aspect has to do with, because it's very popular, and so earlier I mentioned that you know, the company really is a dominating player in particular in online games and social media. So if you can, you know, if you can, in the context of a trade war, if you can punish one of those companies, you can actually gain a lot, right? As they did with ByteDance, that's relatively small and also new company, and it's easier to deal with that that particular one. Another, so in a broader context is the rise, the development of high tech, particularly AI. And so I don't have the latest information, but the AI related patterns have been increased dramatically in China. So in some way, when we talk about, you know, who is the largest economy, who is the second economy, it's definitely relevant, but it's also nowadays in this digital high-tech driven economy, the AI and all those kind of high-tech become more important. That's also the larger background of banning those Chinese tech companies. Surveillance is a big problem. I think most Chinese users also recognize that as American users too. So most, I think, WeChat users are very much aware. You know, everything you said in the in your message is censored. You know, in various ways. And this is actually something happened to me as American who use this American version. And then I get this message and say, you know, a news you read is actually a fake news. You know, it's factually wrong. I did actually check the official website. I already know it's around the information was incorrect, but it was very surprising. I actually get this message from WeChat and telling me this is wrong information. So it basically means they are monitoring everything closely. And of course, you know, this surveillance had to do with a broader kind of issue of general surveillance in China. Many high-tech firms and companies invested heavily in AI and in technologies of policing the public and things like that, right? So those are the kind of things have been widely covered in the U.S. But also many artists also deal with this as well, like the famous Chinese artist Xu Bing, who produced this film called Dragonfly Eyes. He basically just getting footages from all publicly available channels and put them into a feature film. And it's a you know, so you don't have to kind of go to government sources to find those information, and they're widely available in China. So the last one I want to just briefly mention is how this potential ban will negatively affecting millions of Americans and their families and U.S. companies, of course, U.S. relations. So the first thing I want to mention is that so as I mentioned, there are 19 million users in the United States. Large portion of them are Chinese speaking and Chinese American users who relied on WeChat for daily lives, you know, basically communicate, engage in business, socialize, and do many things, including going for religious activities, you know, medical, Medicare, and also communicate with people in the US and also around the world. And so 19 million is a very big, the number is actually quite large. And of course, that also includes non-Chinese, ethnic Chinese and Americans who have business with China, who develop relations, who do research for various purposes, right? And another thing is most American tourists, when they go to China, if they want to buy things, do anything, they have to use WeChat. You know, if nowadays you go to China, meet somebody, instead of they ask you for a phone number, they ask for WeChat connection, right? So it is affecting those who use this and in relation to whatever things related to China. So when I read the lawsuit filing information, one thing I was very deeply kind of struck me was there was this group of people in California is a non-profit humanitarian group. So they have 400 patients, all elderly people who generally have mental health issues, and they don't speak English well. So then this organization, they use WeChat to organize their daily activities, to communicate with them, to provide education and services. There are also more than 100 volunteers to work for this organization. I'm just thinking, if this app is banned, and even the U.S. government says users can still use it, but companies just cannot update them. So gradually this app will be useless, right? What happened to this group of people, right? So it will really affect their well-being, you know, daily lives. So again, this is about really humanitarian issues. Another thing is, of course, I already mentioned about the company Tencent's connection to U.S. companies. It's very complicated. So it will definitely affect U.S. companies in various ways to do business indirectly or directly. The last one, I think, the whole context has to do with the U.S. president's explicit anti-Chinese statement, right? And I would just call it racism, anti-Chinese racism. And so you think about it, so the banning this app and the effects on the people who use them, and they are all, and also President states explicit statement of anti-Chinese, and they're all in the name of preventing Chinese Communist Party or government to have access to information to the stored in the app. Okay, so what happened to people who don't have healthcare, who don't have government support information, and they are supporting one another? I mean, if that happens, if Chinese government actually have this information, 400, 500 people who need healthcare, if they can help, why not? So, but I'm just speculating. This is not the kind of privacy information the U.S. government is thinking about. In fact, the U.S. judge agreed that their executive order is very broad and very weak, and also they have violent First Amendment, freedom of speech and religion, and also the president and the Secretary of Commerce succeeded their authority over those U.S. laws. And so currently it's really just kind of a temporary blocking. So we don't know what's going to happen in the end. But clearly for what happened so far, this is clearly a larger effort of the U.S. Trump administrations and racial efforts of connecting the trade war to anti-Chinese, anti-American efforts. So, and that's all I want to talk about today. I think this is a very complicated case. I try to focus on the facts rather than my personal opinion on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ren.